Hey everybody, welcome to Appalachian Trail Talk here. This is leg number 6. If you remember last time, leg number 5, we ended up down at Fontana Village. I elected to, I stayed the night at the Fontana Hilton here, which is a really nice shelter. Walked down to the visitor center, where I then got a ride down to the village, where I then picked up a package at the post office. And no, actually, I take that back. Yes, I picked up a resupply box at the post office, and I also picked up the box that I sent myself from Hiawassee that had my Evernew titanium alcohol stove and pot stand, as well as my micro spikes, and I elected to send them home because the weather forecast was looking pretty good. It's now, I think I'm about the first part of April, if I remember right now, and I decided to take my chances without the micro spikes. Now remember, at this point I'm not in trail runners. I'm still wearing my Loa GTX Renegades, so I still had pretty good traction with those. Good tread on them, and was feeling confident that as long as I didn't get something horrendous like an ice storm or a lot of snow, I was going to be okay. Now here, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, and the first one is philosophical, and this is very important. About this time, I'm getting ready to learn. I guess I've been starting to learn some lessons, but on this next leg, I learned a very important lesson, that everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to work out. And to begin to relax in my hike, and not get so wrapped up in perhaps the logistics, that things are just going to work out okay. The trail provides you what you need. You hear that all the time. The trail teaches you what you need to know. You hear that all the time. At this point in time, I'm beginning to experience some of those things that are actually very beneficial for me, and are actually working. So you're going to hear me say it. You're not going to believe it until you're out there doing this on a through hike, that things work out. You're going to start paying attention to what other people are talking about when you're having your meals, you're hanging out the shelters on a break. You know, you'll gather a lot of information about things. You'll be able to pass on some things to people. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, which I hope to be able to clear up here for you. So when you get ready to leave here, Fontana, you'll either be leaving from the shelter here, and there's a little campsite here too where you can camp. A really great little area to eat right there. There are showers there too, by the way. You can shower. So if you didn't want to spend any time down the lodge, you could get a ride down there, pick up your resupply box, come back, get a shower, and head on. Now, so you're going to come back down to the visitor center here. Either way, you're going to get there, and you're going to walk across the dam, okay, and then you're going to head up a road. And you're going to head up this road. If I remember right, it was a little bit of distance, and then you'll start up the grade. And somewhere up that grade, you're going to come by a box where you're going to have to put when you print out your permit, okay, there's two parts to that. The part that you keep with you and you write on it when you enter the park, and the part that you're going to put in the box, okay, and there's instructions on there. And there's a great help in the AWOL guide here, okay. So yes, you're going to have to buy a permit. Okay, it's going to cost you $20, and it gives you 8 nights. It took, because I zeroed in Gatlinburg, and I'm a little bit slower. If you remember, I'm still kind of nursing a knee injury coming down Blood Mountain still at this point. It's working on healing, but it's not quite there. It took me 10 to get out, and I had to show my permit on the trail to a not a ranger, to one of the ridge runners that 10th day as we were heading towards the exit, which is at Davenport Gap. She didn't say a thing. Okay, because we're not there living on the trail. We're actually was trying to get out, so it didn't seem to be a big deal. Okay, you can get it up to 30 days in advance. Okay, so that's why I say you can get it at in Franklin if you need to. All right, now you have to stay in a shelter or a designated campsite. Okay, and here it tells you that, well, the only designated campsite is Birch Spring. Otherwise, you really have to go far off the AT on side trails to get to designated campsites, like a long way, which is not. So basically, there's no stealth camping. Okay, you're either at the shelter or you're at the shelter. Okay, now there was a lot of misconception. People thought that, okay, if I get to the shelter and it's full, I have to go to the next shelter. So that means I might be hiking at night, and that is not true. Okay, if you get to the shelter and the shelter's full, you pitch your tent there by the shelter. It's usually a lot of open ground and plenty of places to put tents. Okay, if in the section, hikers have to have reservations and they have to stay at those shelters. If you are the first 4 through hikers there, you're guaranteed a spot in the shelter. So if you really want to be in the shelter, let's say it's really bad weather and you're like, I want to be in the shelter tonight. Okay, if you're the first 4 through hikers, you're guaranteed a spot. Everything else goes to section hikers, and it's the last in, first out. So if you take the last spot and a section hiker comes walking in, then you got to give up your spot and go set up your tent. All right, now, can you hammock? Yes, you can hammock. There's plenty of places to hang. What you cannot do is you cannot hang your hammock either in the shelter or attached to the shelter. You've got to use the trees. Okay? All right, and there's bare cables at every one of those, and you have to put your food up on bare cables. Okay? There's no pets allowed in the park, and here's some help on kennels. The Standing Bear Farm, that's as you exit the Davenport Gap, on the north side of the park. And I can tell you, having been there, if you're okay with your dog running in a pack of other dogs from other hikers, then this is a place to coordinate that. They don't keep your dog in a kennel. They'll pick it up and they'll take it and they'll turn it loose, and it stays and hangs around or it doesn't. Okay, so if your dog is cool with other dogs and other hikers and will tend to stay around, then it probably will work for you. But if not, border beware. Okay, all right. So I think that's a pretty good overview of now. The shelters themselves. The time of year when you're going to be starting northbound, they put a tarp over the sleeping area. It's usually there's a lot. There's like 10 up and 10 down, like 20 people in a shelter. There's usually a little fire pit that's in there. Early on in the year, there's plenty of deadfall. Later on, there's not. If you want to be in the shelter, let's say bad weather, and you really want to get kicked out, but then so section hikers come in, and if you challenge them and ask them to produce their reservation. I had an instance where some guys showed up at shelter that were supposed to be there that night. They decided they were going to keep going. Well, wait a minute, they don't have a reservation for the next shelter. Well, I guarantee you they're going to walk up and go, oh, I'm a section hiker, I get to be in the shelter. So if you really want to be in the shelter and somebody wants to boot you out, I'd ask to see their reservation. Okay? All right. So here we are at Fontana. Okay, we come back to the dam at the visitor center, we cross the dam, and then we start back up. And, you're looking at 1.1 miles before you start up. I didn't pay any attention to that, and I kept thinking, where is this box we're supposed to put our stuff in? Well, you're gonna start heading up. Okay, now when you get about halfway up here, you're going to get a really, really good view of the dam. And I'm going to just insert right here a picture of that. Okay. Once again, you continue to climb, and there is a fire tower right here. And having not climbed up the one at Albert Mountain, I kind of regretted it. So I climbed up and took a picture from the top of the fire tower, and I'm going to go ahead and insert it here. All right, pretty cool view, huh? And then let's see. I had kind of thought we'd try and get to the Molly's Ridge Shelter. Kind of thought that's where I'd try and end up at. But we kind of got off late that day, and by the time we got to this Birch Springs Gap, it was like, you know what, I think we're done. So we stopped for the day here, and then continued the next day. And I'm kind of to the point now where I'm beginning to feel like I'm kind of hiking my own hike. And I made a decision because of, working with my knee, and the Smokies were really pretty, and I really wanted to enjoy the Smoky Mountains. I didn't want to just blow through them. You can get through them in 3 days if you're a 30-mile-a-day hiker. That wasn't me. And as you look at my places here where I stayed, you see that I did some pretty short days there. Okay, I was not breaking any kind of a distance record here on my transition through the park. All right, so this is the one campsite that you can stay in that is not a shelter. After that, all the rest are shelters. And I found that the shelters were almost too close together, 7.5 miles. And you're really doing the ridgeline walking, so you're actually can make pretty good time. But I couldn't do the 15 or so to try and skip a shelter sometimes. All right, so I kind of felt there was a couple of days where I just stopped early. All right. So the second day then. So the second night in the Smokies was at this Russell Field Shelter. All right. And I don't remember much about it. I think I do remember it was raining. And I got into camp, and half of my body was wet on one side because the rain was coming in sideways. And this is a night that I really would have liked to have stayed in the shelter. I was the second to the last person in, and then 3 section hikers came in and kicked me and a girl out. And then eventually more people came in and more people had to leave, but then we're setting our tents up in the rain and everything. So that was kind of a bite that day. Taking off now, we're starting to really climb up here. Okay. Getting up, and I might have I'll throw in a couple of pictures here at the same time. I think the second morning out here at Derek's Knob, it was wicked cold that night, and I had all my layers on and a scarf over my over my mouth because it was just so windy. I think I even had my puffy jacket on to start off with, and it didn't take long before we were able to shed some of the layers. But I'll throw that in here along with a nice pretty view. All right, once again, third night now is Cider's Bald, and once again we're up above 5,000 feet. And the AWOL guide, this symbol here tells you where the actual shelter is. Notice that they've got the tagline here, okay, but this is actually where the shelter is located. So you're actually going to be coming up a little bit further from the gap down here. to actually get to the shelter itself. Now this is one of those, this is the most important foot stompers. This is not that the AT turns to a cardinal heading of east. This is the AT turns east. If you're northbound, that means it's going to make a right-hand turn. Okay, that could be cardinal heading southeast. Okay, so this is important to note. These are trail references. It's going to turn east to the trail, not a cardinal heading of east. So beware with that. Okay, and another pretty view there. So that is that's the third night. And let's see here. I'm going to have to pause here and find out where my other page went. Okay, it was on the back of my Fontana Village page here. That's why I couldn't find it. I'd put it in a different spot. All right, so just on the last page there, we had just we camped. Double Spring shelter came a little too soon. Was going to stay at Mount Collins, okay. And I remember we had some bad weather, some rain coming, and here is this path. There's two places to get off and get out of the park and get down to Gatlinburg, okay? One is at Newfound Gap, and the other is up at the parking area at Clingman's Dome. All right, and the parking area is 0.5 east. The trail actually goes right by Clingman's Dome, okay? But the parking area you've got to turn and go down to. So that's a place where you can get a ride down, and then down at Newfound Gap. Now, I had gotten up here the earlier part of the day, and I was going to come down. I was going to camp down here at this Mount Collins shelter. And this is one of those times where I got down here and I sat on a log at this trail intersection. It was half a mile down and half a mile back. I knew I needed to go in and resupply. I was going to do it the next day. I'd waited probably too long to get a reservation anywhere down in town. Most people were bailing off up here at Clingman's Dome. I was one of the few that decided that I would maybe do it the next day at Newfound Gap. Well, now I found myself here, and I just had this feeling, and this happens quite often for me, but I had this feeling that I shouldn't do it. So I continued to hike and went through these wild hog pens. There's a containment area to keep the hogs out of a certain area of the park because the hogs are tearing it up. And I got up here and I made a phone call. Thank you, Verizon. Was able to get a hold of the Grand Prix down in, which is a little hotel that caters to hikers down in Gatlinburg. He's like, no, I don't have any rooms, but it's just you, huh? And I think what he did is he kind of gave up a room that he kind of holds off for himself, perhaps. But anyway, he managed. He did say he would hold a room for me, and but I had to get there. And in the AWOL guide, it says that they do shuttles. Well, guess what? They don't do shuttles anymore. So that was a lesson learned. You know, if you're gonna rely upon something, then be careful. So I got down to Newfound Gap and began my first experience with hitchhiking. You know, I had my little sign that said, you know, AT hiker to town, and put my thumb up and waited and waited and waited, and nothing happened. Then I got on the phone and I called the cab company, and they said, well, we think we can get somebody up there in a little bit. It's going to be a minimum of $40 just to come up there. And then you'll have to pay the meter fare all the way back down. So I was looking probably, $80-$100 for a taxi ride. Pretty discouraged, went ahead and arranged it. And about that time, as I hung up, this truck pulled over, and it just so happened there was a man that I had been talking to up at Clingman's Dome, okay, earlier that day. He was a worker up there, and he recognized. I spent some time talking to him. It's one of those times when I made an investment, and somebody was curious about me and what I was doing, and it paid off in the end, because then he picked me up and he took me into Gatlinburg. All right, and took me right to the Grand Prix, which is where I ended up staying. Now, Resupply in Gatlinburg. There's a couple little places kind of in town, more little convenience stores with not a whole lot. If you want to go to a grocery store, you have to get on a trolley and go to the other end of town. So going into Gatlinburg to Resupply, unless you get in there at early in the morning, you're going to end up zeroing there probably. Okay, by the time you get everything done, you could just go in for one night, and when you come back, just go to this ice water spring shelter. Okay, so it is possible to only spend one night in Gatlinburg. You don't have to spend two if you plan it right, but it's going to take a while. Now, this is the other I gotcha. Okay, while you can hitchhike from Newfound Gap into Gatlinburg, you cannot hitchhike. It's illegal to go out of Gatlinburg. So I was just going to go over to the National Park Visitor Center and hang around the parking lot and see if I could bum a ride without putting my thumb out and chance getting a ticket. However, once again, you pay attention, you talk to the people around you. I'm an introvert, but you have to be a little bit extrovertish, and found out that the outfitter there in Gatlinburg, which is also called the NOC, the Natahala Outdoor Center, or the Outpost, they run a shuttle, 12 people, up to Newfound Gap and to Clingman's Dome every morning, first 12 people. So as soon as you get into Gatlinburg, when you're leaving, go over to the outfitter and sign up for the shuttle to take you back up the next morning. I was one. I think I was the only one that got off at Newfound Gap. Everybody else went up to Clingman's Dome, and then I was feeling pretty smart, because now I was ahead of the game. So anyway, that's about it for this particular leg. I'll throw a picture here in the end up of me up on Clingman's Dome, and just look at the visibility. I was really, really lucky. I remember Sam Dermosh, Sam I Am, 2015, his Clingman Dome's experience was in the clouds. But you can see that we had some fantastic visibility that day. Okay, everybody, hope that helps. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments section, and I'll address them when I do my next Q&A. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.